This is Straight Talk with Atlanta native Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and his sidekick Shanan Jones. Frank discussions of issues affecting the ATL, Fulton County, the state of Georgia, the nation, and around the world. And now, here they are, live and in living color, the team of Jones and Fann, the Preacher Man.
Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and Big Papa done came on from his babysitting duties and all them other duties, being here, there, and everywhere. Hey, Big Papa.
Don't believe that. Don't believe that. No. When y'all don't see me, we under contract negotiation.
If you believe,
I'm trying to get some of that Greg Fann money, that Preacher Man money. So when you don't see me, we in contract negotiation. And we negotiated this time.
Why you tell that every year that
And I'm
guaranteed
because every year we go through about this time, about this time. I don't play with my money. I got the border feed. I got that border feed.
Why do you tell people that every time?
I got that border feed. I got Pampers to buy, and applesauce, gas, child care. I can't be playing around. But we worked it out. We negotiated. I got some of the Greg Fann money and that Preacher Man money.
Well, you know what? On that, I'm gonna take my glasses off because you have. God will forgive you. God will forgive you, my child.
Listen, I have amazing. I got amazing grace now.
All right, good.
But now you gonna tell the people that you're gonna be with me Sunday. You coming over to scare the hell out of my people, preaching hell, fire, hell, and brimstone at the children's dedication.
I am definitely. My message does not change. My message does not change. One of the things that we have to, and we get in the program in a minute. Shannon and I, we tease each other a lot, but really, I'm committed to the message of what the Bible said. It teaches us that God said, "No good thing that I will withhold from you, those of you are called according to my purpose." The purpose. Jesus' purpose was to come into the world to die for our sin, that we might receive what? Eternal life. So as ministers of the gospel, our purpose should be the message of salvation and eternal life, and teaching people there is a life after this life and where they will spend eternity. And so that's my message. That's been my message for the last forever. Ever since I've been preaching that message. We moved away from that message, the doctrine, and we moved to a prosperity, getting rich, wealth, the message, and then teaching people how to be greedy, selfish, angry, jealous, envious, and all these things. And that's what we're seeing going on in the world today. So yes, from where I'll be preaching the message of salvation, and I'll be talking about salvation, and certainly my message does not change. It will not change. I know I have different audiences, so I'll tailor it for that audience, but it's going to be the message on you need to get saved and you need to do it now because Jesus is soon to come back. So
we're looking forward to it. We're just going to have the baby sitting up front. I told my mother, I say, you better be right on Sunday. You better get right. Y'all better get right. She said, what you talking about? I said, Greg Fann coming to preach. He gonna preach fire, hell, and brimstone now. And I said, and then I pulled up your Bible study, and you was preaching, and it had the hell, the flames behind. I showed it to her. She busted out laughing. I said, y'all better be right. You better be right. We looking forward to it, Bishop. We really are. And you're gonna dedicate Samuel, our baby boy. And we're looking forward to it. Honored to have you to do that, sir.
Yeah, we're honored to be able to do it. And the other thing I want to say is let's keep our leader, Brother Fred Teller. He has been ill. He's in Emory Hospital. So let's keep him lifted in prayer. Pastor Smith sent me a notation to let me know that he was. And Fred and I go way back as a young man at West Holland Street Baptist Church. Fred Teller was close to Reverend Abernathy, came here with Reverend Abernathy from Montgomery. as he was pastoring the First Baptist in Montgomery, and became an intricate part of the movement. And we're going to be talking tonight and showing about the 14th Amendment. And it's going to be a teaching lesson tonight to talk about some stuff we've forgotten because we don't know what the 13th and 14th Amendment said. Because, I said this in CBT the other week, Shanan, when they were asking, what do we need to do? What needs to be changed? I said, one of the things is our young people don't know civics because they don't teach civics in school. They don't talk about the branches of government in school. They don't talk about the judicial branch and the executive branch and the legislative branch of government and the duties of each one of those branches of government. But they all are to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America that was founded by our founding fathers. So we'll have that on, and Shanan, we're going to talk a little bit about D.A. Willis too. We're going to talk a little bit about D.A. Willis and what's going on in that case with Donald Trump. It's amazing. We'll talk about that later, but it is amazing though, Shanan, is that he always talk about a witch hunt. This ain't nothing but a witch hunt. But this with her ain't nothing but a witch hunt. Throwing the light off of what's true in terms of all the crimes he committed and throwing a light on her in her personal life with whomever she has a personal life with. So we're gonna be talking more about that as we
before we go into that, I just want to come back to Reverend Taylor and say that if possible, we certainly want to make our way to his bedside to pray for him. So we want to pray for him, but we want to pray with him. Reverend Taylor is the vanguard, and we talk about the deans of clergy in the movement, and I believe I think he and Burley are like neck and neck in terms of which one is being, but we certainly want to be there to pray for him. I learned fearlessness. He was one of those champions that taught me to be bold and to stand up. Even through his differently ableness, he marched and led and continues to do that in spirit. And so we want to pray that we can even now be his legs for him to continue the mantle in this year, which is the ground zero of this country that we're going into. We're going to talk about that. That we are literally facing an ideological, and it could possibly become a civil war in 2024. It was the first pillars of life that gave us the strength and the wisdom to be able to face for the living of these days.
Now, I want to say this though, is that we got to also remember this is a spiritual war too. It's not just a war that we're fighting. As the Bible says, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but spiritual wickedness in high places. So this is a spiritual warfare. We're going to be talking more about that. Shanan and I on the other side. We're going to come back now with Miss C. Miss C going to give her news and information. She'll be talking about Sunday services. Well, not Sunday services. Let me tell you, you need to go by the gathering period. And it's a great place to be. They got a great preacher. It's a great church. And if you don't have a church home, if you don't know the church, have a church home, we recommend the gathering. We'll see you on the other side.
Thank you.
Hi, Miss C here with your 3-minute news blast or more. Hey, Bishop Greg. Hey, Pastor Shanan. Good to see y'all again in the new year. Listen, I got some tidbits of news I want to tell you about, okay? New Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church at 1385 Gus Thornhill Jr. Drive in East Point wants you to join them for their Gospel Love Fest 2024, February the 11th, beginning at 4 p.m. There will be special guests, good singing, love, and fellowship. For information, contact AMA Productions at 404-819-8090 or call the church at 404-766-8117. My good friend, Reverend Thomas G. Ashford, is pastor. Hey, Reverend Ashford. Join the Gathering Church, where our own Reverend Shanan Jones is pastor. It's real people, real talk, real church. And they want you to join them each Sunday at 11 a.m. And the Gathering Church is located at 3707 Main Street in College Park, in the Club E Atlanta building. The 59th anniversary of Bloody Sunday will be observed Sunday, March 3rd. Join the pilgrimage as they commemorate the Selma to Montgomery March and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. To get more information, contact Shaneri Ferris at 678-334-0058 or Sandra Williams at 678-209-6019. Now, if you missed any of that, just rewind me and I'll say it again for you, okay? Anyway, listen, I've got on my shirt today. I hope you can see it. It says, don't be the problem, be part of the solution. And so just take that for what it's worth, okay? Let's just try to be better to and more kinder to each other in this year of 2024. All right, and listen, I have 4 other things I want you to do for me. I want you to subscribe, and I want you to like us, and those buttons are right there on the front of your computer, laptop, phone. Anyway, and then I want you to leave comments. Let us know how we're doing. And also, 4, I want you to share us. Don't keep Straight Talk News to yourself, okay? Let everybody know that we're here with Straight Talk News, okay? And listen, if you have any announcements that you'd like for us to announce, send it in to us. Email it to straighttalknews1362 at gmail.com. That's straighttalknews1362 at gmail.com. And we'll be happy to let everybody know about your event. And so that they can come. Anyway, I'm just being silly. I feel silly today. Anyway, we're going to see you right back here next time on Straight Talk News. And I'm Miss C, okay? Bye now.
Today we're going to talk about the 14th Amendment. Let's begin with the text. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. That's the Citizenship Clause. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. That's the Privileges or Immunities Clause. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. That's the Due Process Clause. Nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. That's the Equal Protection Laws. Well, where did this language come from? Let's tell the story of the 14th Amendment. And it's such an important and interesting story. It follows from the backlash against the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which banned slavery in the U.S. And after the 13th Amendment passed, Southern states tried to reintroduce slavery by other means, by passing a series of laws called the Black Codes. And these codes denied the newly freed African Americans the right to sue and be sued, to make contracts, to inherit property, and basically to exercise the basic civil rights of citizenship to which they were entitled. Congress responds by passing the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which says that all people in the United States are entitled to the same civil rights, to make and enforce contracts, to sue and be sued, all the rights that the Black Codes had denied. The thing was that Congress wasn't sure it had the constitutional authority to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1866. And therefore, Reconstruction Republicans, led by John Bingham, thought that the 14th Amendment was necessary to make clear that Congress had the power to enforce the provisions of the amendment by appropriate legislation, and also to guarantee the equal civil rights or privileges or immunities of citizenship. So at the core, the 14th Amendment is designed to constitutionalize the rights in the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Then the first sentence of the amendment overturned the part of the Dred Scott case that said that Black people couldn't be citizens and had no rights that white people were bound to respect. But then the question is, who's entitled to birthright citizenship? And the first test case was called Wong Kim Ark, and it was decided in 1898. Wong Kim Ark was born in San Francisco to parents who were both Chinese citizens who resided in the US at the time he was born. And at the age of 21, he returned to China to visit his parents, who'd previously lived in the US for 20 years. And when he came back to the US, Wong Kim Ark is denied entry on the grounds that he's not a citizen. Under the Chinese Exclusion Act, which was in force at the time, no Chinese subject could become a citizen. He objected. He said he was born in the US and therefore was entitled to citizenship, and the court agreed. Because Wong was born in the United States and his parents were not employed in any diplomatic or official capacity under the Emperor of China, the citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment automatically made him a US citizen. Justice Horace Gray wrote the opinion on behalf of a 6-2 majority. And the court concluded that under the 14th Amendment, it didn't matter who your parents were. It mattered where you were born. And if you were born on American soil, you were automatically a US citizen. The exceptions were Native Americans and diplomats who were not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. The second big idea in the 14th Amendment is the Privileges or Immunities Clause. And the first test case was called the Slaughterhouse Cases. Really interesting and important case. And the basic question was whether a company called the Crescent City Company in Louisiana had created a monopoly when the city of New Orleans set up a grand slaughterhouse, basically as a health response to the fact that there was all this disgusting offal that was being poured into the river at a time when all these slaughterhouses were killing meat to be transported across the country in newly refrigerated railroad cars. So the basic legal question is, does it violate the 14th Amendment to create a monopoly? And also, was it a monopoly to require anyone who was a butcher in New Orleans to use this slaughterhouse? The court could have just decided that question either way and not really disrupted the law. But instead, the majority went out of its way to narrow the Privileges or Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment in a way that basically read it out of the Constitution. The majority said that the privileges or immunities of U.S. citizenship are a very narrow category of rights that were already protected in the existing Constitution before the 14th Amendment, like the right to have the right of habeas corpus, for example. Now, the dissenters said this is completely contrary to the original understanding of the 14th Amendment, whose authors stood up in Congress, said that the purpose of this law is to incorporate or apply all of the original protections of the Bill of Rights so that they bind the states as well as the federal government, as well as to ensure that all citizens have the same privileges or immunities, including the right to sue and be sued, to inherit property, all those rights that were in the Civil Rights Act, which was the whole point of the 14th Amendment in its original passage. And the dissenters objected that the privileges or immunities of U.S. citizens were far broader than the majority had said. It would take almost a century for the Supreme Court to agree and slowly to incorporate or apply individual provisions of the Bill of Rights against the states, but the court had to do it through the Due Process Clause, not the Privileges or Immunities Clause, because the Supreme Court in Slaughterhouse had read the Privileges or Immunities Clause out of existence. This is one case that there's a lot of consensus by liberal and conservative scholars that it was wrongly decided. It was inconsistent with original understanding, but the Supreme Court has not proved ready to re-examine it. The third big thing that the 14th Amendment does is guarantee the equal protection of the laws. Soon after the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were passed, their promise was undermined by Southern redemption and by a series of laws passed mostly in the South that restricted the rights of African Americans. This system of segregation was known as Jim Crow segregation, and it forced African Americans to attend different schools than white people, to drink from different water fountains, to use different restrooms, travel in different railroad cars, and stay in different hotels. The states also used a mix of violence, intimidation, and laws, including poll taxes and literacy tests to keep African Americans from voting. And then finally, less than 2 decades after the 14th Amendment passed, the Supreme Court issued its infamous decision in Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896. Well, what happened in this case? Homer Plessy was working with a group called the Committee of Citizens, which opposed Louisiana's 1890 Separate Car Act. That act segregated railroad cars within the state. It separated African Americans from white passengers and said that African Americans had to ride on separate railroad cars. There was an exception for nurses. If you were an African American nurse, you were allowed to ride with the white folk, but not if you were not a nurse or in a position of equality. That by itself might have given away the real purpose of the law. Plessy was chosen as a test case so the group could challenge the constitutionality of this law. Plessy appeared to be white and was born free, but he was a mixed race, and therefore he was considered black under Louisiana law. And Plessy and his allies hoped that his arrest would prove the arbitrary nature of the law. But in a 7-1 decision, Plessy lost. Justice Henry Billings Brown wrote the majority opinion upholding separate but equal laws. According to the Supreme Court, Jim Crow laws were constitutional. The court concluded that these laws didn't violate either the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, or the 14th Amendment, which promised equality. Here's Justice Brown. While the object of the 14th Amendment was undoubtedly to enforce the absolute equality of the two races before the law, in the nature of things, it could not have been intended to abolish distinctions based upon color, or to enforce social as distinguished from political equality, or a commingling of the two races upon terms unsatisfactory to either. Justice Brown for the court argued that the law was a reasonable use of the state's police power to regulate the health, safety, and morals of its population. And Justice Brown said the underlying mistake of Homer Plessy's argument was the assumption that the enforced separation of the two races stamps African Americans with a badge of inferiority. If this be so, he said, it is not by reason of anything found in the act, but solely because African Americans choose to put that construction on it. But Justice Brown's arguments did not go unanswered. Justice John Marshall Harlan was the sole dissenter. His dissent is one of the most important and powerful dissents in Supreme Court history. Here are Harlan's words. In view of the Constitution, in the eye of the law, there is in this country no superior, dominant, ruling class of citizens. There is no caste here. Our Constitution is colorblind and neither knows nor tolerates classes among citizens. In respect of civil rights, all citizens are equal before the law. And then Harlan went on to say that, in my opinion, the judgment this day rendered will in time prove to be quite as pernicious as the decision made by this tribunal in the Dred Scott case. Well, his prediction came true, and Harlan said that everyone knew the real purpose of the Louisiana law. What can more certainly arouse race hate, Harlan said? What more certainly create and perpetuate a feeling of distrust between these races than state enactments which in fact proceed on the grounds that colored citizens are so inferior and degraded that they cannot be allowed to sit in public coaches occupied by white citizens? That, as all will admit, is the real meaning of such legislation as was enforced in Louisiana. In other words, everyone knew what the real purpose was. It wasn't a neutral purpose to exclude white people from railroad cars occupied by African Americans, or a neutral purpose to accommodate the desires of both black and white people, but instead a racist desire to exclude black people from coaches occupied by white people based on a premise of black inferiority. Everyone knows, said Harlan. And eventually, the U.S. Supreme Court came to agree. To see how the court eventually came to agree and gave meaning to the promise of the 14th Amendment, let's fast forward to 1954 and to arguably the most famous and important Supreme Court decision of the 20th century, Brown versus Board of Education, decided in 1954. Thurgood Marshall, who was the head of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and the great hero who argued Brown versus Board of Education, read Harlan's dissent for inspiration before he argued the case. And Brown was the culmination of a long-term, decade-long strategy by the NAACP and its lawyers like Thurgood Marshall and other great heroes to challenge Jim Crow laws. In Brown, they targeted the segregation of public schools, but the genius of their strategy was that it was a gradual campaign to undermine segregation in other contexts first, like public universities and law schools, before turning to segregation in public elementary and high schools. That was a much more controversial issue because it affected lots more people, and Marshall realized it was best to start with law schools before working his way up to public schools. For example, in Sweat v. Painter in 1950, 4 years before Brown, the court already questioned the separate but equal doctrine of Plessy. That was a case involving Herman Sweat, who was refused admission to the University of Texas Law School on the basis of race. And the court said that was unconstitutional under the Equal Protection Clause because the supposedly separate but equal law school that Texas had set up was patently unequal. The Brown case combined challenges from a bunch of locations: Kansas, South Carolina, Virginia, Delaware, and also Washington, D.C. These cases all involved African-American students who'd been denied admission to white public schools. The challengers all argued that segregation violated the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause, and that separate could never be equal when it comes to public education. And in Brown, the Supreme Court unanimously agreed. It overturned Plessy and concluded that school segregation violates the 14th Amendment's promise of equality and was unconstitutional. Chief Justice Warren held, "We conclude that in the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place. Separate educational facilities are inherently unequal." The court concluded that even separate but equal facilities are in fact unequal because separating the races results in a brand of inferiority imposed on African American students. In the end, Brown attacked the core of the White South's Jim Crow laws and reinvigorated the 14th Amendment's promise of equality. After Brown, the Supreme Court extended the reach of the Equal Protection Clause to cover discrimination in other settings. And in 1963, on the Washington Mall, Dr. Martin Luther King said that the Declaration of Independence was a promissory note, a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The following year, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, a sweeping civil rights law promoting equality. Along with Brown, the Civil Rights Act helped to make the promise of the Declaration and of the 14th Amendment a reality.
Well, Shanan, Miss C. Let me see something else. You talked about the gathering churches, and one of the things that we do want to emphasize that March the 3rd, we're going to go to Selma, Bloody Sunday. So if you've never gone, you need to want to go. And you after hearing what Mr. Rosen has said about the 14th Amendment and how those people laid their lives down, went to jail and everything to give us the right to vote, and how we've been discriminated for so long, is that if you've never gone to Selma, here's your opportunity to go. That's going to be on March the 3rd, and you can call my number, 443080795. I'll have it up on the screen. You can call Scenario, or you can call Sandra Williams. Okay, so I have those numbers up on the stream. So if you want to go, and you want to go to the museum there, the Civil Rights Museum there, you want to go to the museum in Montgomery, we'll be visiting that museum before we go over into Selma across the Edmund Patterson Bridge. Okay, so Shanan, let's talk a little bit about.
I just want to thank Miss C.
Okay.
For inviting everyone to the gathering, and want to let you know that from here forward, I ain't telling what you're talking about it no more. She invited me to the gathering, so you can't do it no more. But anyway, we're going to Silver. I'm going to. Ain't no more you say. Go on. Moderate the program.
I can't really hear you that good now. I don't know what you did to your mic, but I can't really hear you that good now.
I don't know. I didn't do anything.
You walked away from your mic, so you need to be up closer to your mic, because if you was further away, it was like we couldn't really hear you. But you were talking about
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you now. What you were talking
Can you
about?
hear me now?
We can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. So we can hear
Right.
you without
talking
any
about
sourcing. All right. So you were talking about Miss C. What did you say about Miss C?
No, I said no more tolerate. I want to tolerate stuff about Miss C.
See, every time you start talking about Miss C, your voice, your mouth started messing up. It started messing up. You can't even hear what you're saying.
I think that's probably on the right. People can hear me.
Hey, nigga, let's get on those buses and let's go to Selma
Yeah, we're going to Selma.
on March the 3rd. The urban leaders going with us. We have several schools that's going to be sending young people with us, and it's a great trip. It's a great educational trip.
Now March the 3rd
March 3rd.
is Samuel's first birthday. And I'm sending CBC. But we have a big birthday for his first birthday. And that's so easy for the Jones birthday. But I'm going to send the members and others to be there on the 3rd.
Well, I hear what you're saying. You say you're going to be there. You would be there, but Samuel's birthday, he'll be, what, 1 year old? 1 year old. What time rolled? It looked like it was just last week I was helping you buy Pampers.
Just last week, you keep buying the Pampers. But if I get on the bus to Selma, I might as well stay on that bus to Birmingham. All over, wherever else. Because I can't come back home.
Well, we invited others to come. We know you can't go this time, but you will go and encourage others to go, because it's a trip worth taking. It's a trip worth having that experience to see what happened to those individuals who are our family members and how they were affected by what they did in terms of going to Selma. Crossing that bridge. Crossing the bridge is the real story, and how they were beaten, how they were ran back from the bridge and ran back to Brown Chapel Church, because we'll be at the Brown Chapel Church where they started the march at, and then we'll leave from there, going across the bridge. All right. So Shanan, now let's talk about this 14th constitutional amendment and how. Can you see the similarities in what they did then in terms of the black code and the changing, creating Jim Crow laws for black people couldn't vote, and that's what Reverend Dr. King and Reverend Abernathy and Hosea Williams and C.T. Martin and C.T. Vivian, C.T. Vivian and those individuals worked to get us the right to vote. And now they're moving back with this same kind of voter oppression, right? But they're doing it in a different way, because they gave the power to the state to control how people will be registered to vote, right? And when they stripped that amendment that said that they had to have pre-clearance from the Justice Department before they could make any changes to the law about voting, then it opened up floodgates, and we see all of these laws about about voting. You can't have water, that you can't help give folks food, you can't do this, you can't do that. All of these laws that have come after the pre-clearance in the southern state. And we saw Louisiana in particular. They talked about Louisiana a lot in terms of the things that were happening in Louisiana back then. So right. So we see these things happening again. And we see what's happening with this former president who wants to be president again, talking about doing away with the Constitution, period, and the deal with how people vote and where they vote and when they vote and all these other things. See, if our vote was not that important, they never would be fighting us voting in the first place.
That's right. That's right.
And when we talk about Reconstruction, they did this after Reconstruction. And, before Reconstruction, as you know, and many that's listening, that you had black sheriffs, you had black senators, you had congressmen, you had that. But when they did Reconstruction, all of that was taken away, and this was put in place to keep black people from being able to vote, to elect the people who they wanted to see in office, right? So here we go again. It's the same thing. We must know our history, and this is a history lesson tonight. In terms of what's really this. You see this going on is because of this one document that has been held up and has to be enforced. Now we have the Supreme Court, just like those Supreme Court judges, now looking at whether or not this former president can have immunity to be able to do what he wants to do and he can create any criminal act he wants to, but he's got immunity, so he cannot be charged criminally. And that's what he's saying. I have immunity. So as the former president, I was acting in my presidential duties and responsibilities, so I should not be charged with any criminal crime, whether it was rape, whether it was fraudulent, the books in terms of property, whether I made millions and millions of dollars from other foreign entities that was doing business with the United States. All of these things, I should be able to do whatever I want to do because I am, and I was a former president of the United States. So you can't hold me against doing wrong, even though I was wrong, and I know I was wrong, but ain't nothing you can do about it.
And we remember in 1972 or 73, with Nixon saying when the president does by that means it's not a crime. And because the president could not commit a crime, because the president existed in immunity. And then we saw that was not true. And it wasn't true then, and it was not true now. We said a lot of just looking back and just saying that the function of our problem is going to be the gutting of that's in the right one. The 9 states, 7 states, and the gutting of the Civil Rights, Voting Rights Act of 1965. That is going to be the crux of our problem, is getting the United States Justice Department, Civil Rights Division, to once again see that once you remove the restraints from these southern states, they go right back in. But the problem also is that now statutory law is that that is the apartheid-esque thing that's going on, is that of course the beings are by a majority tyrant minority, that power and authority and privilege will be protected through the courts and through statutory law. It's allowed in the Supreme Court that is saying, well, the states have to go. You know, they got back in states. And we're looking at a couple of things. Freeport has a major things before them that we're studying and watching to see how they're going to respond in terms of removing Trump from the ballot in states based on the fact that he called for an insurrection. And no insurrectionist should be able to move the high office of president. It's going to be interesting to see how the Supreme Court rules on that. I think they're going to get back to this. And so we're in an interesting time to reign with all of this. And, you know, it's not even enough. You know, Bishop, I've been looking at the polls. And the poll that I saw a couple of days ago was that 10% of black folks say they can vote. And another percentage said that they are going to vote for Trump. And I think that many times we get caught up, and this might be the problem of having, you know, so much information could be damaged. I think that this 24-hour news cycle, and many times, has just, and social media and all this stuff, has clouded people's reason. I was talking to a brother the other day who is an absolute black conservative. And he told me, I mean, he's absolute black conservative. He can't wait to put Trump back in office. And he told me about a new opportunity that if I wanted to go get my doctorate to do something, that there is an absolute forgiveness. Or excuse me, basically, the Department of Education is doing a restructuring of student loans so that you have a second chance. And they rearrange it so that your credit is taken away from your credit, so that your credit score can go up. And you can work on a new payment plan to pay off your federal student loans. And they work with you with whatever you can do to do that. And they clear you to be able to do that. And this black conservative was telling me all about that. I said, well, as soon as you get caught back in office, you're going to have some credit problems. Because that forgiveness plan, whatever they can do, I said, oh, that's going to go away. That was given to you by Biden. He said to me, absolutely. And I want to thank Biden for doing that. Many times we're not thinking as nuanced people about what we're doing, and we're caught up in the sizzle or the smoke of an issue instead of really getting down to the steak and potato nitty gritty as to what it would mean if we put a Biden back in office in 2024 November, or we put a Trump back in office, and what that will mean. It's far more nuanced than people are thinking, and that's why I say that this year and this presidential is ground zero for the United States of America. I got something showing up in the screen. Look like that. Something fuzzy. I can't see.
I see you. I see something growing. I see something fuzzy in the stream now. I see something real fuzzy in the stream.
It just went away.
Yeah, it just went away.
You
Because
spoke to that
I
dude.
just took it away.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know that's my concern. And listen, and I'm done with this. Black folks never should forget that the 13th Amendment frees, the 14th Amendment made us citizens, and the 15th Amendment gave us votes. And those were not just in the Constitution. They were amendments. Our vote is an act. We better wake up to what's really going on and really pay attention and start reading and thinking and talking and strategizing. Because, man, if we don't do that, we could see ourselves back in the kind of slavery that we never thought we would find ourselves back in.
Well, you're absolutely right. I agree with you 100% because, as I said, this is a spiritual war as well as a political war battle because spiritually, if you read the Bible and you understand the Bible, you understand why we're in the dilemma that we're in. People have gotten to a point, Shanan, where their focus is on getting rich, money, fame, popularity, all the things that you hear people talking about. Well, you got the TikTokers, you got people TikToking and talking and ticking and all those other things that they're doing, Shanan. You got all these things that's going on now that people are doing, and you're saying to yourself, what the world is going on here? What's really, really going on? Why are people doing the things that they're doing? Why are they being like they are? What's going on? What's really, really going on? So these are the things that we're dealing with, that we're faced with today. These are the things that we are faced with today. You and I are faced with. And I don't know what's happening with my stream. It started messing up last night. in Bible studies. I don't know what's going on
Okay,
here.
because you said what's going on. I
Yeah,
want to ask you what's
yeah.
going on.
What's going on? I'm trying to see what's going on. I'm losing you. You coming back and everything else.
There we
But
go.
there we go.
You just had us back.
Oh, let me see. Can I get us back again? There
There
we
we go.
go. Okay. So what's happening here is that we speaking truth to power. Things mess up when we start telling the truth. But the enemy don't want us to he don't want us to just tell what's really going on. When you have a person, when we talk about, and this is spiritual part about it, the Antichrist. When you have a person, and people are saying, the evangelicals are saying, well, these are supposed to be spirit-filled people, right? But this is what they're saying. This is what the angelics are saying. I heard a young lady say this. She said that she's following Donald Trump because Donald Trump is following Jesus. He's our Savior like Jesus is our Savior. Well, Jesus' purpose, and I said it earlier, for coming to the world to save us for our sin, that we might receive eternal life, not to oppress people. That's what they said then, because they were saying that black people should not have opportunity to go to co-mingle with white people, riding on buses and going to school with white people and everything. I'm a child of the segregation era. Segregation. I've had to ride the back of the bus when I was a little kid. And that was probably in 50, 56, 57, 58, somewhere along in there. Catching the number 20 College Park bus at the side of Richards, getting on the back of the bus going to College Park. So I've had that experience. And people who are my era, they've had that experience too. And they understand it. I don't know why they just keep doing that. And what's the purpose of it?
Maybe it's vibrating. Maybe you should move it from.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Whatever it is, I want it to stop. Okay, so the whole thing of it is that those of us who are of that era, we understand that we didn't go and start playing white school in terms of Caucasian school in terms of sports until 1966. I was 16 years old in 1966. We started playing and going to the white schools and integrating in the white schools in 19. Now remember, they said the act was passed in 54. In 54, I was 4. And so I'm just saying is we were still segregated. We did not really integrate until when they marched in Montgomery because of Ms. Park riding on the bus. Because she would not sit in the back of the bus. She was going to stay where she was. And I don't know, that ain't vibrating now, Shanan. That's just changing. But the reality of it is that's what's really going on. Because we did not, and you can ask your dad that, and your mom too. They know, they baby boomers, they're of that era, they understand. We did not really start going to school and integrating with white people or Caucasian people until 1966. And I was 16 years old. So
My parents would have had
Go on.
my parents would have had a different experience because they were raised in the north, up south, right?
Right.
So some similarity. My mother was raised in St. Louis, so then you have the Catholic schools and it was a Catholic town. So they're racist, St. Louis. Then and now, Michael Brown. But but they wouldn't have had that experience. They never rode on the back of the bus. And their experiences about the experiences you had was when they came back south for the summer and they had to have the talk about how they had to act when Papi and Granny and Granddad and Mama left them in Birmingham or in Mississippi for the summer.
They had to have the Emmett Till talk because they
Yes,
came
sir.
south. Right. I got
Yes,
you.
sir. Yes, sir.
Well, those of us who were here, we experienced that. We know that.
Yeah.
So we understand the difference. And so, and if we're not careful, as you said, we're going back because they've created all of these new laws And yeah, we have blacks that are in office now. Many blacks are holding office now, but just like they did under Reconstruction, it's nothing but a vote.
Yeah.
And if you get the Supreme Court to rule as they did then, the rule in the opposite direction, we'll go back to where
Yeah.
we used to be. Because it lies right there with them. Because we know now, even just now, looking at it now, we're looking at this issue of immunity, as you said. We're looking at the issue of whether or not he has immunity. We're looking at the issue, the other issue in terms of whether or not states can remove him from the ballot. We're looking at these issues, but that all they're gonna lie with the Supreme Court, right? So
Yeah.
so they can make that decision. You heard Mr. Rosen said there's a decision that they made a long time ago that was later changed from the decision that they had made. Well, we know one even during this lifetime, abortion, right? They changed the laws in terms of abortion. That's what many people are mad about right now, because they changed it because they said it's unconstitutional, and they made the wrong decision back then. So it lies right there with the court. What that Supreme Court says, the decision they say, it becomes a law of the land. And we know when Congressman Lewis was living, and they changed that amendment that for the pre-clearance, he fought to try to get something in to make it back fair again. But you haven't heard a peep from anybody else about trying to do anything to get that back into an article or an act again, right? Because as you said earlier, we're here on an act, and it says that we are citizens of the United States by virtue of our birth. We have certain rights by virtue of our birth, but they don't respect our rights. They don't respect our rights because, let's be clear, they don't. They don't respect our rights. They wouldn't keep doing the things they do if they did respect our rights. So, Shannon, we can go on and on about this, but I want to just talk a little bit about Miss Willis, and I'm going to let you take it from there.
You're going to let me take it from there.
Yeah.
Well, we're watching this case. You and I had very spirited conversation on this air about a couple things. Anybody having, no one is above the law. And we had conversation about this Fulton County case and how they were going to come after Fann. And I remember talking to you outside, the blessed memory of my dog sitting at my side while we talked about this. One time we were talking about it, and it got dark. Remember, it just got dark on us. And
Right.
the sun, the light just went away. Well, the case is now that allegedly D.A. Willis allegedly is in a relationship with one of, or the lead outside special prosecutor that she has brought in, Mr. Wade. And Mr. Wade is also going through a divorce right now. And I'm saying Mr. Wade is a James Wade. I can't, for some reason, his first name slips and I don't have it in front of me. Bishop, you might pull it up. But they're saying that, so Mr. Wade is going through a divorce and his wife is wanting to testify, or have Fann pulled into their divorce case because she's alleging some things regarding, I guess, their relationship and how it hurt the marriage. On the other side, there is a Mr. Roman, who is Michael Roman, who is a Republican strategist who's also one of the co-defendants in the Trump 19. And he's alleging But not only was there this relationship, but that D.A. Willis allegedly paid Mr. Wade more money than she paid two other DAs who, two other outside special prosecutors to the DA's office.
Nathaniel
And I
Wade.
think
Nathaniel Wade.
Nathaniel Wade, that's right, sorry. James Roman, Nathaniel Wade. So Nathaniel Wade was paid something like north of $600,000. The other two were paid, I think, 70-something thousand and 90,000. Their terms made. And at the Big Bethel AME Church on King's Sunday, D.A. Willis said that she paid all three of them about the same. And it was said for the same length of time. And so we've got these disparities in numbers. 11 Alive and some others, local news, WXIA here, did a study and found that the increments were a little different. Interesting story in the Wall Street Journal about the case. Now the judge is looking at the panel, the governor is looking at the panel that was created by the legislature to go after rogue DAs, and the Speaker of the House, Speaker Burns, is saying that he has no problem with that happening. And then there's one more pending case where counsel is requesting for D.A. Willis to be removed or for the case to be moved from this DA's office to another jurisdiction. So that's what's all going on with it. And I suspected that when Trump landed here at Signature Airport on the backside of Hartsfield Jackson International Domestic Terminal and took his motorcade through the community and through the hood on his way to Rice Street, that this was going to be not an open and shut case, that this was getting ready to get dirty. And here we are.
Well, all right, and there it is. They want to know your opinion, what you think, and about all of the things we said about the 14th Amendment, the 13th Amendment, and what Mr. Rosen said, who is a constitutional professor who teaches constitutional law, and what Shanan just said about D.A. Willis' case. The witch hunt is on. The witch hunt is on. So let's hear what you're saying, and let's get your comments. And we want you to always like us, subscribe, and comment and share. Or should I say it the way Miss C said? I'm going to say it the way Miss C said, Shannon. I'm going to say Miss C is your favorite person this week, since you've been gone.
Miss C is my favorite person every week.
Oh, wait. Since you've been gone, she's your favorite person. Because
she's been my favorite person. Miss C,
Miss C been sick. Miss C been sick, and you ain't been there to see about her. You haven't been there to see about her. So she your favorite person.
I was sick.
Oh, you were sick too? Oh, I thought you was in contract agreement or something. I thought that what you said earlier. Oh, okay. So is it that you were in contract agreement, or is it that you were sick? I'm just trying to figure out what's really going on. I thought you were sick myself. I thought you said to me, Bishop, I don't feel good. I'm sick. I'm here taking care of my son, so I can't come home this week, Bishop. I thought that what you said, but I'm gonna let that slide, Shanan. I'm gonna get this
out. That's what my lawyer told me to say.
Okay, your lawyer now. Your lawyer told you to say that in terms.
That's what my lawyer told me to say. He's contract negotiating got me sick.
Bless your heart. Bless your heart. That's all I can say. Bless your heart. Bless your heart. Ladies and gentlemen, this ain't been nothing but straight talk. But as Miss C says it, hey, subscribe, like us, make comments, and share. And this program has been messing up tonight technically. We've been having some technical difficulties, but don't worry about it. We're getting the message out there. Join us next week on Straight Talk with yours truly, great fan, the preacher man, and Shanan E. Jones. He says he's got his contract now. Belichick looking for one. Tomlin has one, and McCarthy is coming back to the Dallas Cowboys. Until next week, ain't been nothing but Straight Talk with yours truly, great fan, the preacher man, and Shanan what? E. Jones.
Want to be a guest on Straight Talk? Email Craig Fann at FANN922@Comcast.net or call 404-308-0795. Join us again for another episode of Straight Talk with Shanan.